Well, hello. How are you rock stars doing today? How have y'all been? I hope this day is going really wonderful for you. I got up this morning and I feel pretty good, but I just feel like after months and months of running, I'm just like kind of low on energy. So I just decided I'd sit back and let this be a chill day. And the minute I decided to sit back and let this be a chill day, my daughter was like, "Can we go to the arboretum and walk around?" And normally I love the arboretum. I'm sure it's beautiful at this time. And knowing me, I'll get up and put clothes on and go. But I just kind of wanted to chill today. But I didn't start this video wanting to talk about the arboretum. I was on a couple of lives this weekend, the end of this past week, and just yesterday I was on a couple of lives, and I mentioned in the chat, because there's a lot of talk about singlehood and marriage and what it takes to be married and what it takes to be successfully single and be prepared for your husband or your wife. And it was expressed to me multiple times that there is a need for married couples, not so much newlyweds or people that's been married 4 or 5 years, but for seasoned married couples that have been in the marriage some years. There was a niche that needed to be filled. There was a lacking of sound, biblical, mature advice. And I kind of, when that was brought to my attention, I kind of pushed back on it, because I feel like in a lot of ways, there's not a shortage of people who've been married. I mean, there's, it's not like they're just this rare breed. I feel like for the people who've been married, longer than 10, 15, 20 years, that there's almost like a dismissiveness when it comes to younger, married people or single people. It's like they want to put you in a corner of the rocking chair and say, "Oh yeah, that's how y'all did it back in the day, but we're doing this new thing." And it's almost sort of like this dismissive air, and that we kind of feel like they wouldn't benefit from our wisdom. But there is wisdom to be had. And several young, smart, successful singles and some newly married people have asked for my opinion on marriage, because I mentioned to them, Ray and I, on the 27th of this month, will have been married 36 years by the grace of God. And well, I think with that, there comes a lot of experience and a lot of maturity and a lot of wisdom. And I just wanted to share some of that, but I just wanted to start out slowly, because I'm not really sure if anybody's interested in that. People are interested in the salacious details, and they're interested in the drama and the things that stick out, that are almost like what that they call clickbait now, the sensational stuff. But I'm not going into that. I'm going to answer the question that was broached to me. How do you prepare to be married, and how do you stay married successfully? How is that done, and what does that look like? I was on a live yesterday also, and I said, and it kind of triggered some people on the live when I said this, but I basically said a successful marriage, our marriage is a death walk. It's a death walk. You die to serving your needs. You die to serving yourself. And the longer you've been single, the harder it is for you to die. You don't realize until you're married and you have a child or children just how selfish and self-serving you are, because it's not brought to your attention. It doesn't appear that you are living this selfish life. Because you could say, well, I fed the homeless, I had ministry at church, I prayed for people, I'm a good co-worker, I'm this, I'm that, and the third, I give to the poor, I do all of these things, so how am I selfish? Well, marriage shows you every way that you're selfish and how you've served yourself. And it's a part of taking care of yourself, and you don't realize it as selfishness until after you're married. Marriage is a death walk. You die to serving yourself only. Yes, you should take care of yourself and keep yourself up, because no man feeds and clothes himself and cares for his flesh and or leaves himself abandoned. But you feed your flesh and you cherish it and you love it, and you're supposed to take care of yourself. That's biblical. But when you are married and when you become a parent, you don't have the opportunity to serve yourself as much, and because your flesh is used to the amount of service you give it, your flesh rebels. You begin to see flesh die if you're walking this death walk properly. Now I know for a lot of people are like, death walk, that just sounds so so unhappy and miserable and stuff. But once you get into marriage, you'll understand it's the most freeing, most liberated, most joyful, most fulfilled you will be in your life. Now, can you remain single and be joyful? Of course you can. Of course you can. My mom modeled the single life before she passed, 30 plus years. I would have loved to have seen her with a godly husband, but that's not what happened for her. But she modeled that joyful single life, so it can be done. But marriage and parenthood is a death walk. You die to your time and ability to serve yourself alone, and you practice serving your spouse and your children the way that you say you're practicing serving the Lord. It's a death walk, but it's the most joyful. It's one of the most joyful experiences you'll ever have. There's a difference between the textbook and the movie and the Hollywood joy and the real joy of actually being married, and the difference is the Word of God. That makes the difference. Today I want to look at, in Marriage 101, the essentials of the vow you take when you get married. I, like most brides I know, stood at the altar before my handsome, gorgeous, sexy man that I was thrilled beyond words to marry and take on his last name. We stood at the altar and we repeated after the pastor words to this degree. These were our words. These were our vows that I'm going to read. In the name of God, I, Christina, take you, Ray, to be my lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, forsaking all others, to cleave only unto you, until we are parted by death. This is my solemn vow. And he repeated that same vow to me. And we walked out of the church with the rice. This is when you were still throwing rice. You don't throw rice anymore because it's no longer good for the environment and that sort of stuff. But they threw rice and they blew bubbles at our wedding to usher us out of the chapel and into the honeymoon phase. And we left, like most married people, we left the meaning of those vows behind, not really understanding how we were standing before God and before our parents, grandparents, some of us, all of our relatives and friends that we've known from childhood. and reciting those vows with the Lord at the center of those vows. When Ray and I took those vows, we took it under the premise that we loved each other and we do our best to take care of each other. But we also took it under the premise of not having a real relationship with Jesus Christ. Both of us are what you would call church children. We were taken to church, we were drugged to church, our grandparents took us to church. His parents were deacons and ushers and had roles in the church. You know, my family was active in the church, so we went to church. And we both confessed Jesus Christ at early ages. But it was only until after we were married that we became intimate and in a really deep, abiding, saving relationship with Jesus Christ. So that's the first essential that I'm getting to. To fulfill the vows you made, the for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, to have the fortitude, the stamina to continue to deny yourself and deny the things that you want in order to serve your spouse and God. To be able to even look at those vows, you have to have that type of relationship with Jesus. Jesus is the soul of self-sacrifice. He is the blueprint. He is the model. He is the high standard of what marriage looks like. He modeled how to take care of your bride. The church is his bride, and he modeled that beyond any type of debate or argument when he took to the cross and laid his life down for his bride. The scripture that comes to my mind is the love chapter. And a lot of people like to skip over most of the love chapter, because most of the love chapter is not cute and warm and fuzzy, but it actually breaks down what love is. And it explains why marriage is a death walk and why love is actually a sacrifice. This chapter is 1 Corinthians chapter 13. It's probably one of my most favorite chapters in the Bible, and it reads, "If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast, but do not have love, I gain nothing. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror. Then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part. Then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. When I stood before Ray, and yeah, this is actually our cake topper from 35 years ago, showing lots of wear and tear, but still having the original glisten. The bride still has her eyes turned to the groom on the cake topper, and in real life, I still look to Ray in that same way. And it's just wonderful. But I want to go back to the vows for a second, and how important it is you understand all of the vows and what they're actually supposed to mean. Because once you say the traditional wedding vows, I take you to be my spouse, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish. All of that sounds fantastic until we're parted by death. This is my solemn vow. Most of us, when we're first married, if we're really honest, we read the vows like this. In the name of God, I take you to be my spouse, to have and to hold from this day forward, maybe, till you get on my nerves and then I be slack. For better, no worse. For better, for better. For better, for better. For richer, no poorer. For poorer, I'm going to lack in poorer. It's just for richer, for richer. If you don't have any money, I'm going to treat you like trash. In sickness and in health, but just don't get too sick. Now, if you have the normal sicknesses and stuff, that's fine. But if there's anything that comes up that requires me to do more than I figured on doing, then we're going to have issues and problems that I'm going to create with my rebellion. To love and to cherish, oh yeah, I can do that because I love you now, and I'm assuming you're always going, I'm assuming 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years from now, you're going to be the exact same person that I'm married. And since you're easy to love now, you're going to be easy to love then. So I have no problem with the to love and to cherish until we are parted by death. Oh, I can't see myself with anybody else, unless you change my view over time. Then I may have to part from you because of what you show me, but it'll be your fault. Even though my vow said, and I did stand before a thrice holy God and say these vows, he'll understand if we don't make it until we die. This is my solemn vow. We say that, and that's actually the vows that we recite. But the vows that we actually speak are the vows that are recorded in heaven. The vows that God will take seriously are the vows that you speak before your future spouse, your parents, his parents, all of your relatives and friends. That the thrice holy God who stands in the center of your marriage, that you're pledging your lives to together. Those are the vows he hears. But in your heart, he hears the vows you say, but he knows your heart. He knows the depths of your heart. So he knows to what degree you're going to be able to withstand it, be able to endure. Because see, the thing we don't understand is once we recite those vows, God says, okay, for better, for worse, for richer, for poor, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, forsaking all others, cleaving only unto your spouse until you're parted by death. Okay, you vow to me and to your whole community, both of you, that this is what you've chosen to do. This is the kind of love that you say you have for each other. Okay, Let me give you some time together, and we're just going to find out. I'm going to give you better and worse. I'm going to give you richer and poorer. I'm going to give you sickness and health. I'm going to give you loving and cherishing moments. I'm going to give you all of these things. I'm going to give you the chance to cleave only unto your spouse and forsake all others. I'm going to give you that opportunity. And I'm going to give that to you over time. The devil and his minions aren't the first ones that are going to test your vows. God is. God is a showing and proving God. And those who belong to God, those who have given their lives to Jesus, have to also show and prove as well. If you're entering into a covenant with the Most High God and your spouse, He sees those vows, whether you like it or not, whether you desire to keep them or not, and He honors those vows. He honors the commitment you make. The worldly tenets, outside of salvation in Jesus Christ, which by the way, Ray and I got saved in 1995. So we were married from 1987 to 1995, and we lived pretty much like unsaved people. Our daughter called us heathens when we would tell her about the stories of when we were first, newlyweds, how we lived, because we lived like heathens. And the vows we made before God, we didn't understand the solemnity, as they say in church, the solemn nature and the grave consequences of disregarding and tossing those vows. We didn't understand the consequence and the seriousness of not, of being callous and indifferent about the vows we made before God, and how important it was. And we lived like heathens. We had fun though, but we still live like heathens. But the Lord saved us in 1995, and we've been walking with the Lord ever since. And that walk is a different walk than the first one. That walk is when we really began to live out our vows and understand how serious it is to live them out. So with that, I want to lead into, how with your vows, you should not look at the worldly reasons for not honoring those vows. The for better, for worse, the for richer, for poorer. Well, okay, if the money runs out and things aren't the way we discussed it, or we never had a real discussion about money and we just thought love would pay the bills and we'll just wing it, do I still have to honor the vows? What if I'm just not happy anymore? I mean, he hadn't really done anything. It's not like he's cheated on me or anything like that, but I just feel like I've made a mistake. I'm just no longer happy. It's not an abusive situation or anything like that. It's just not what I thought it would be. Is that good enough? Well, what if I'm just no longer sexually attracted to him? Is that good enough for me to break the covenant I stood before God with? Even though none of that is biblical. None of that's biblical. None of that is biblical. Well, what if we married and we have kids and he just becomes a bum and he just doesn't want to do right by his kids? He's at home, but he's not at home. He has no time for them. And isn't that a reason to just take my wedding ring off and walk away. None of these are biblical. None of these are biblical. None of them. None of them. They're summed up. All of these scenarios, I'm not attracted to him, the money's run out. I've met somebody else that seems to be more in sync with me. We match energies. You know, my husband is just, we just don't match energies anymore. I'm not feeling him that way anymore. But you stood before a church. You stood before God. You stood before your parents. And you said, for better or for worse, for rich or for poor. You said you would forsake all others. You said in sickness and in health. Well, he has a terminal disease now. We didn't have enough time to really have things the way I wanted them to be. And I have to take care of him? Well, I didn't sign up for that. Yeah, you did. Yes, you did. In sickness and in health. In sickness and in health. When you read your vows and you think about all of those different scenarios, and a number of scenarios you can come up with even before you get married, none of those are biblical. None of those are biblical. Marriage is a binding covenant. There are biblical mandates that will facilitate a divorce. But the overarching truth to all of that, outside of grave danger and just abuse, is God's intention that marriage is honorable. It is to be fought for. It is to God's original intent for man to be reconciled to himself and to each other. It is love is the overarching theme for marriage, but it isn't what we think of love. Love is self-sacrificing. Love is bearing one another's burdens. Love is working for one another, with one another. Love is fighting for each other. That's love. Love is about reconciliation as far as marriage is concerned. Unless there are dire circumstances. God is pro-love. He's pro-marriage. He's pro-reconciliation. None of those and so many more are reasons to dissolve the marriage. There are more reasons for you to fight. There are more reasons for you to get the help that you need. Those vows are binding. If outside of those vows and for unbiblical reasons you break covenant, then the covenant is broken. But you can reconcile with a change of heart by both parties. You can still reconcile. God can create a brand new covenant with brand new people He's been able to work on. He does that with salvation over and over. He calls us to work out our salvation with fear and trembling. God loves marriage. He's pro-marriage. When He sees a husband and wife joined together and vow to love one another and fight for one another, He sees Christ in the church, and the world does too. Marriage is a wonderful thing to God, but it takes Jesus. It takes a relationship with Him. When you can't talk to your spouse and you in your head are done with Him, you go back to the vows you made and you go to God. You go to Jesus. Those things are essential. So for singles, I would say, while you're working on securing yourself financially, and you're going and you're unpacking all the baggage of your childhood, and working out all of your attachment issues, and all of the things that are of importance, and getting yourself together. The most important thing is your spiritual relationship with Jesus. That's the most important things. In a marriage, all of these other things play a part, and they can be somewhat problematic. But one of the worst things you can do, and this is just me speaking, I'm no marriage expert. I've been married 36 years, but longevity does not equate to experience if it's not applied, if it has not been applied in the 36 years. So if I've applied some of these things, I'm telling you, or most of these things I'm telling you about. One of the worst things you can do is to build a relationship and see yourself in a future with somebody who is not saved. Someone who does not have a relationship with the Lord, does not have the blueprint for his or her life. If that's your husband and he has no relationship with Jesus, then he has no real platform that he can choose from to lead you and his children. He has to be a believer and a follower of Jesus Christ, one who has proven by his actions that he is in love with the Lord, and he models those leadership qualities that the Lord expects of his men. And as for you as well, it's wonderful to be an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I have my own business. It's wonderful to have those things, but you have to have a relationship with the Lord as well, and you have to be able to hear from the Lord. You know, just like you would seek the Lord for your business, you're going to have to seek the Lord for your husband and for your children. There are some things that the Lord are going to give you intuitively that will apply to how you are to take care of your husband and your children. But there are some things that are not going to come as instinctively, that you're going to seek him for, and you want to already be in the habit of seeking the Lord for whatever it is. You already want to have a deep and abiding relationship with the Lord. So the union between you and your spouse will be one that is harmonious as it can be. Before you begin to, that's the best you can give. That's the best gift you can give yourself on your wedding day. Both of you have a deep and abiding relationship with Jesus. Because after you say these vows, I promise you, the Lord is coming. He's coming with for better and for worse. He's coming with for richer and for poor. He's coming from in sickness and in health. He's coming for all of those things. He's coming to test you. He's coming to solidify the vow you made. He's coming to remind you of the vow you made. He's coming to see if you're going to honor him in the vows that you made. So he knows what you need to do when you need to do it, and it's not always going to be pleasant. A lot of your flesh hanging on you right now that you don't even deem as flesh is going to die. But when you let it die, I'm here to tell you, when you let it die, when you do what the Lord tells you to do, even though every fiber of your being is screaming, don't do it. Be petty. Pay back evil for evil. When you do what God tells you to do and you are obedient, there's always a reward and a blessing for you in it. You build up your house when you're obedient in times where it's hard for you to be obedient and submissive. You build up your own house. But when you are not, when the Lord has spoken to you about your husband and you defy the Lord and you do what you want to do, your flesh will feel good for the moment, but you will forfeit what you could have had, because the victory will always be hollow and it will never be worth it. So trust me, the Lord tells you to do something and your flesh is just like, I don't do that. Do it, and quickly. You'll be blessed by it. You will be blessed by that submission. So let's read the vows again and focus on the essentials of the vow. Essential number 1, you gotta have your faith unshakable in Jesus and have a relationship with him before you ever get married. That's the most important thing. Love for each other will be shown to your spouse and to the world by the vows that you decide to honor. When you honor your vows in the midst of everything, it shows your spouse over time, and it shows the world that you're committed. You're committed. There'll be times where it doesn't look like there's even a payoff. Or what am I going to get out of this? There's nothing in it for me, and I just feel stupid. And the world will convince you that you are stupid. I mean, nobody does it anymore. That was back in the day. Submission. You don't need no man. You got a car. You got a house. You got the high-paying job. You don't need no man. What you need a man for? Girl, I wouldn't, if it was me, I wouldn't do that. She haven't had a ring from a Cracker Jacks box, but she gonna tell you, girl, if it was me, there ain't no way I'd be doing that. I ain't putting up with that. 36 years later, she never been married. She got 4 kids and 12 grandkids, but she's never been married. But she's talking to you. That's another topic I'm going to bring up maybe for another discussion of Marriage 101, how to tune out the worthless positions. But anyway, let's read the vows again. Thinking about what I've just said about the vows and how important it is. And put my name back in there again and read them again from the standpoint of what the Lord would have us to do as far as honoring our vows and how serious it is. In the name of God, I, Ray, take you, Christina, to be my wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, forsaking all others and cleaving only unto me until we're parted by death. This is my solemn vow. It's weighty. It's not storybook fantasy when you think of it in terms of what it means. It's a death walk. It is a beautiful death walk, but it is a death walk. When you lose your desire or the time you have or the ability you have to feed your flesh, to serve yourself, and you begin to serve others, another door that God has for you to walk through begins to open. When you begin to serve your husband, it sounds master slave, but it's not. It's not. It's servant. Because he is to serve you as well, and it's a mutual submission. When you do that, you open the door to serve in the way God has for you to serve. And God never designed for you to serve yourself and only yourself. You are here on an assignment and a mission, and when you choose to get married, you have signed up for God's mission. Because when you marry, you recite vows that induct you into the type of submission that God requires of marriage, the type of submission that Christ had for his church. So, when you read the love chapter, 1 Corinthians 13, and you put your name in it, it's different. When you put your name in everywhere you see I, it gives you a good picture. And when you put the name of Jesus in everywhere you see love, because God is love and he created Jesus as an ultimate expression of love for us, and you read it, it takes on a different meaning, but it gives you an idea of what real marriage is and what honoring your vows really looks like. I'm going to put my name in here, and it's going to be hard for me to read because it's not cute. It's self-sacrificing, but it's the kind of love that will allow you to see 20, 30, 40, 50 years with the same person and be able to work with that person, go through with that person, and it be a joyful thing. 1 Corinthians 13. If Christina speaks in the tongue of men or of angels, but she does not have love, she is only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If she has the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if she has a faith that can move mountains, but she does not have love, she is nothing. If she gives all she possesses to the poor and gives over her body to hardship, that she may boast, but she does not have love, she gains nothing. Jesus, but does not have Jesus. Let me read this again. If I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not have Jesus, she is nothing. If she gives all she possesses to the poor and gives over her body to hardship, that she may boast, but she does not have Jesus, she gains nothing. Jesus is patient. Jesus is kind. He does not envy. He does not boast. He is not proud. He does not dishonor others. He is not self-seeking. He is not easily angered. He keeps no record of wrongs. He, Jesus, does not delight in evil, but he rejoices with the truth. Jesus always protects. He always trusts. He always hopes. He always perseveres. Jesus never fails. But where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away. For we know in part and we prophesy in part, but when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child. I thought like a child. I reasoned like a child. When I became a woman, I put the ways of childhood behind me. For now we see only a reflection as in a mirror, then we shall see face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, even as I am fully known. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and Jesus. But the greatest of these is Jesus. I pray that I've said something or sparked something in you. If you are looking at marriage and wanting to be the best wife, husband that you can be, go back to the one who has all the answers. Develop your relationship with the Lord Jesus and know that there is someone that the Lord has for you out there waiting on you. And let the Lord lead. Let the Lord lead you to your spouse. Be the best you can be in every way. Do as much work as you can beforehand so that you won't have that much preparation to do. Not so much in your marriage. It won't be so chaotic because, again, I'm telling you. And I don't know if anybody's ever said any of this to you. Maybe they've painted a rosy picture. I don't know. This is not gloom and doom. Like I say, it's joyful and it's beautiful, but it's also quite real. When you recite those vows in whatever state you find yourself in, if you're just euphoric or no matter what state you find yourself in, when you stand before the church and you stand before God and your relatives and you recite those vows to your spouse, God is coming. And life's tests and trials are coming too. We gloss over it and we've done you a disservice. We as people who've been married for decades have done you a disservice. We paint this rosy, enviable, eternally romantic picture, and that's not the case. It is beautiful, but it is work. It is sacrifice. It is a death walk. But it is one that pleases God immensely because it points back to the way Christ loves his church. The husband and the wife are protected of God and loved of God as they keep covenant. There's a great protection in that. When you're trying to honor your spouse in the unromantic, unenviable times, in the times where the world would tell you throw in the towel and give up, and you are seeking to honor your spouse, there is a blessing that comes with that. A huge blessing that the world does not understand. But it is one I pray for all of you who are seeking to be married. But if you ask me, this is just what I think and how I feel. Look at the vows. Find vows online, traditional wedding vows. Look at those vows and take them into deep consideration in your prayer time. And seek to honor those vows before you ever marry. Seek a relationship with the Lord Jesus. I believe this is a series I'm going to start as I get more ideas. But the Lord woke me up this morning to talk about that because I don't think many people are talking about vows. And so, with that, because I don't want to drag it too much longer, I pray that you did get some wisdom out of it. I'm here for questions. You can give me a comment, share if you know somebody who may benefit from what I've just said. And I just pray that this upcoming week is a fantastic one for you, a productive week, a week where you hear from God in a way you've never heard from him before. God bless you.